Welcome back, everybody. These are the best films that came out in 1972. Let's check out all the classics. Horror, comedy, romance, drama, thriller, comedy, farce, you name it, every genre. We're going to cover the best films of 1972. Let's check them out. '43, The Richard Petty Story, with Darren McGavin and Kathy Brown and Noah Beery Jr. Biography, comedy, and drama. Race car driver Richard Petty stars in his own B-movie bio. The Ruling Class, with Peter O'Toole and Alastair Sim. A member of the House of Lords dies, leaving his estate to his son. Dark comedy, parody, satire. The Ruling Class. Alfredo, with Dustin Hoffman and Stephanie Sandrelli. Alfredo, a timid young Italian, lusts after and woos the beautiful Maria Rosa. Alfredo. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, with Fiona Fullerton. Alice falls down a rabbit hole and into a magical dream world populated by surreal characters and bewildering adventures. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Another Nice Mess, with Rich Little and Herb Voland. Far spoof comedy, President Nixon and VP Vice President Agnew as if they were Laurel and Hardy. Another Nice Mess, this is a comedy duo. A Reason to Live, A Reason to Die, with James Coburn and Telly Savalas. Branded a coward for surrendering his New Mexico fort to the Confederates without firing a shot, a Union colonel leads a band of condemned prisoners. Avanti, Jack Lemmon and Juliet Mills. A successful businessman goes to Italy to arrange for the return of his tycoon father's body. Avanti, comedy and romance. Awake and Sing. Felicia Farr and Robert Lipton and Walter Matthau. Walter Matthau heads the cast of this television recreation of Clifford Odets' 1935 Broadway Awake and Sing drama. Beware of the Blob came out in 1972, comedy. Alien invasion and dark comedy. The technician brings a frozen specimen of the original blob back from the North Pole. And then it melts and starts eating people. Dirty Little Billy. A more realistic, based on reality, unsensationalistic portrayal of the gritty early years of one of the most famous Wild West outlaws in history, Billy the Kid. Dirty Little Bitty. Black Gun, with Jim Brown. A black militant group robs a mafia bookie joint and also steals the incriminating ledgers, which in turn prompts retaliation from the mob. Black Gun. Butterflies Are Free. A blind man moves into his own apartment against the wishes of his overprotective mother and befriends the free-thinking young woman next door, Goldie Hawn and Edward Albert. Call Her Mom. Connie Stevens. A sexy waitress becomes the house mother in a fraternity house. Comedy, Call Her Mom. This movie was good. A lot of laughs. You'll enjoy it. The Call of the Wild. Charlton Heston, Michelle Mercier. A house dog is abducted and brought to the north as a sled dog. Adventure, family, and western. The Call of the Wild. Cancel My Reservation, Bob Hope, Eva Marie Saint, and Ralph Bellamy. Bob Hope is a stressed-out talk show host who is sent on a vacation to Arizona on doctor's orders. Cancel My Reservation, comedy and mystery. The Candidate, Robert Redford and Peter Boyle. Bill McKay is a candidate for the U.S. Senate. He has no hopes of winning, so he is willing to tweak the establishment. The Candidate. Political drama and satire. Class of '74. Pat Woodell and Marty Bay, 4 young modern women in college set out to explore all that life has to give with various new adventures and relationships. Class of '74 is a drama romance. Cries and Whispers. When a woman dying of cancer in early 20th century Sweden is visited by her 2 sisters, long repressed feelings between the siblings rise to the surface. Harriet Anderson and Cries and Whispers. Crime Boss, with Telly Savalas and Antonio Sabato. Organized crime boss Don Vincenzo leads the pack and is faced with a huge struggle. Crime boss, crime and drama. Deathline, Donald Pleasance. When a government official disappears in London tunnels after several reports of missing people in the same location, Scotland Yard starts to take the matter seriously. Dark comedy, horror, and mystery. Deliverance, John Voight, Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, and Ronnie Cox. Intent on seeing the Tallahassee River before it's dammed and turned into a lake, outdoor fanatic Lewis Medlock takes on his friends canoeing for a trip they'll never forget. Dracula AD 1972 with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. 1972 London, a century after his final battle with Professor Van Helsing, Count Dracula is resurrected and goes on a killing spree. Every Little Crook and Nanny, Lynn Redgrave and Victor Mature. Italian-American Manifesto, Carmine Ganucci evicts Miss Poole after their second School of Etiquette from commercial success. Every Little Crook and Cranny. Everything you always wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. Woody Allen, Gene Wilder. 7 stories are trying to answer the question, what is sex? Or maybe they are not trying. Dark comedy, parody, satire. Evil Roy Slade, with John Astin and Mickey Rooney. The meanest villain in the West, Evil Roy Slade, falls for pretty school teacher Betsy Potter. Evil Roy Slade, satire, comedy, and western. Fat City, Stacy Keach and Jeff Bridges. 2 men working as professional boxers come to blows when their careers each begin to take on different directions. Fat City. Frenzy, John Finch, Barry Foster. A serial murderer is strangling women with a necktie. The London police have a suspect, but he is on the wrong man. Dark comedy and thriller. Frenzy with Alfred Hitchcock. Frogs, Ray Milland and Sam Elliott. A group of helpless victims celebrate a birthday on an island estate crawling with killer amphibians, birds, insects, and reptiles. Horror, mystery, and sci-fi. Fuzz, Burt Reynolds and Raquel Welch. Police in Boston search for a mad bomber trying to extort money from the city. Action, comedy, crime, and drama. 1972 has it all. Gargoyles, one of the scariest films of 1972. An anthropologist, paleontologist, and his daughter, while traveling through the southwestern U.S., stumble upon a colony of living, breathing gargoyles, intent on killing people. Gargoyles. Duck You Sucker with Rod Steiger and James Coburn. A low-life bandit and an IRA explosive expert rebel against the government and become heroes of the Mexican Revolution. Duck You Sucker. The Godfather. Don Vito Corleone, head of a mafia family, decides to hand over his empire to his youngest son. Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Diane Keaton. The Godfather. Godzilla vs. Gigan. After a magna artist and his friends uncover a plot by his employers at an amusement park to lure Ghidorah and Gigan to Earth, they must call upon Godzilla to kill them. Hammer. A Los Angeles dock worker becomes a boxer, but his crooked manager is involved in various rackets and he's working for the mob. Fred Williamson, Bernie Hamilton. Action, crime, and drama. The Hot Rock. George Segal, Ron Liebman, and Robert Redford. Dortmunder and his pals plan to steal a huge diamond from a museum, but this turns out to be the only first time they have to steal it. Caper, action, comedy, and drama. Joe Kidd. Clint Eastwood and Robert Duvall. An ex-bounty hunter reluctantly helps a wealthy landowner and his henchmen track down a Mexican revolutionary leader. Joe Kidd. The Possession of Joel Delaney. An upper-class Manhattan divorcee comes to believe that her brother is possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. Shirley MacLaine, Perry King, and David Elliott. Junior Bonner, Steve McQueen, Robert Preston, Ida Lupino. Ace Bonner returns to Arizona several years after he abandoned his family. Junior Bonner is a wild young man. Contemporary Western, drama, and Western. Kansas City Bomber. Raquel Welch and Kevin McCarthy. Roller derby skater Casey Carr tries to balance her desire for a happy personal life and her dreams of stardom. Kansas City Barmer. Extreme sport drama. Lady Sings the Blues with Diana Ross and Billy D. Williams and Richard Pryor. The story of the troubled life and career of the legendary jazz singer Billie Holiday. Biography, drama, musical, and romance. Vengeance of the Zombies. An Indian mystic uses magical chants to raise women from the dead, then sends them out to perform revenge killings for him. Horror. Vengeance of the Zombies. The Last House on the Left. B-horror, splatter horror. Two teenage girls heading to a rock concert. For one's birthday, try to score marijuana in the city, where they are kidnapped and brutalized by a gang of psychopathic convicts. Last Tango in Paris. Marlon Brando, Maria Schneider. A young Parisian woman meets a middle-aged American businessman who demands their clandestine relationship be based only on sex. Steamy romance, tragedy, and drama. The Scopone Game. Every year, a countess invites a poor Italian family to play in a card game. The Scopone Game. Albert Sorgi and Silvano Magano. Madam Sin. Betty Davis and Robert Wagner and Denholm Elliott. A CIA agent is used as a pawn in an insane woman's plan to steal a Polaris submarine. Adventure, crime, and thriller. The Magnificent Seven. Lee Van Cleef, Stephanie Powers. Forced by personal circumstances, Marshal Chris Adams recruits a writer and 5 prisoners to help him eliminate a gang of Mexican bandits. The King of Marvin Gardens. Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, Ellen Bernstein. A daydreamer convinces his radio personality brother to help fund one of the get-rich-quick schemes. Drama. Moon of the Wolf with David Jansen. After several locals are viciously murdered, a Louisiana sheriff starts to suspect he may be dealing with a werewolf. Werewolf horror, and thriller. Napoleon and Samantha, Michael Douglas and Jodie Foster. 2 young children who, rather than part with an old pet lion, who was once a circus performer, goes on a perilous mountain trek to stay with a recluse friend. Adventure and drama. Night of the Lepus, horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Giant mutant rabbits terrorize the Southwest. Stuart Whitman and Janet Leigh. Now we have the classic from Walt Disney. Now you see him, now you don't. A chemistry student invents a spray that makes it wearable invisible. A crick finds out about it and plans to steal it. Kurt Russell, Cesar Romero, and Joe Flynn and Jim Backus. Cabaret, Liza Minnelli, Michael York. A female girly club entertainer in Weimar Republic era Berlin romances 2 men while the Nazi party raises power around them. Cabaret. Sounder. Cicely Tyson and Paul Winfield. The oldest son of a loving and strong family of black sharecroppers comes of age in the Depression era South after his father is imprisoned for stealing food. Pocket Money. Paul Newman, Lee Marvin. Broke and in debt. An otherwise honest cowboy gets mixed up in some shady dealings with a crooked rancher. Comedy, drama, and western. Paul Newman and Lee Marvin. Portney's Complaint. Richard Benjamin, Karen Black, and Lee Grant. The movie chronicles a young man, his love and passion in his own kinky way. Dark comedy, satire, and comedy. The Poseidon Adventure. Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Shelley Winters, Red Buttons. A group of passengers must embark on a harrowing struggle for survival after a rogue wave capsizes their cruise ship at sea. The Poseidon Adventure is awesome. Prime Cut. A vicious Kansas City slaughterhouse owner and his hick family are having a bloody beef with a Chicago crime syndicate. Prime Cut. Lee Marvin, Gene Hackman, and Sissy Spacek. Pulp. Michael Caine, Mickey Rooney. A seedy writer of sleazy pulp novels is recruited by a quirky, reclusive ex-actor to help him write his biography at his house in Malta. Pulp. The Boxer. When boxer Teddy Wilcox is framed for murdering his cricket manager Nick, he escapes police custody and goes after the real killer in order to clear his name. Robert Blake, Catherine Spock, and Ernest Borgnine. Run, Cougar, run! In Utah, the idyllic existence of a mountain lion family is threatened when tourists, bent on sport hunting cougars, make their appearance. Stuart Whitman and Frank Aletter. Run, Cougar, run! Sam Cade, Ed Asner, Edward Buchanan. Sam Cade was the first feature-length movie put together from episodes of Cade's County. Sam Cade is targeted for assassination when he is scheduled to testify against a man kingpin. Say goodbye, Maggie Cole, Susan Hayward, and Darren McGavin. A recently widowed researcher doctor is convinced by a colleague to join him in an inner-city clinic. Shaft's big score. Richard Roundtree and Moses Gunn. Shaft is black to find the murderer of an old friend on the cold, hard city streets with the help from his new friends. Next up we have is Skyjack. Charlton Heston, James Brolin, Claude Akins. A crazed Vietnam vet bomber hijacks a Boeing 707 in this disaster film filled with the usual early 70s stereotypes. Skyjack. Sleuth. Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. A man who loves games and theater invites his wife's lover to meet him, setting up a battle of wits with the potentially deadly results. Sleuth. Snoopy, come home. When Snoopy receives a letter from a girl named Lila, who's in a hospital, she goes on a journey with Woodstock to see her. Snoopy, come home, Snoopy. Remember? Snoopy. Dean Jones, Nancy Olson, Harry Morgan in Snowball Express. When John Baxter inherits a ski resort in the Rocky Mountains, he quits his job in New York and moves west to run it. Comedy and Family, Snowball Express. Something to Hide. A man having marital problems with his shrewdest wife picks up a young, pretty, and pregnant hitchhiker. Peter Finch, Shelley Winters, and Colin Blakely. Something to Hide. Something Evil. Darren McGavin, Sandy Dennis, and Ralph Bellamy. A young couple moves into a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania. What they don't know is that there is an unseen presence in the house. Folk horror. Superfly, Ron O'Neill. The daily routine of cocaine dealer Priest, who wants to score one more super deal and retire. Drug crime, action, drama, and thriller. Tales from the Crypt. Joan Collins, Peter Cushing. 5 strangers get lost in a crypt, and after meeting a mysterious crypt keeper, receive visions on how each of them will die. The Crooked Hearts. Rosalind Russell and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. Con artist stalks members of Club of Rich Old Women. Comedy, crime, and romance. The Godfather. Don Vito Corleone, head of a mafia family, decides to hand over his empire to his youngest son, Michael, with Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Diane Keaton. The Godfather. The Heartbreak Kid. A newlywed man on his honeymoon has second thoughts about his marriage and falls for a different woman. Satire, comedy, drama, and romance. Charles Grodin and Sybil Shepherd. The Judge and Jake Weiler, with Betty Davis, Doug McClure, and Eric Bardin. A retired lady judge runs a private detective agency helped by an ex-con and various parolees. Next up we have is The Mummies of Guanajuato. The mummy of the legendary wrestler Satan awakes 100 years after his death. Mexican wrestler Santo and Blue Demon must fight the monster and the aliens. Next up we have is The Murder Mansion. A couple lost in thick fog take refuge in an old mansion next to a cemetery, and strange things start to happen. Annalise Gade. The Night Stalker with Darren McGavin. An abrasive Las Vegas newspaper reporter investigates a series of murders committed by a vampire. The Night Stalker. Vampire horror and mystery. The Getaway. Steve McQueen, Ali McGraw. A recently released ex-con and his loyal wife go on a run after a heist gone awry. The Getaway. The Mechanic. Charles Bronson and Jan Michael Vincent. An aging hitman befriends a young man who wants to be a professional killer. Eventually, it becomes clear that someone has betrayed them. The Mechanic. The New Centurions. George C. Scott and Stacy Keach. Family man Roy joins the LAPD to make ends meet while finishing his career. The New Centurions. The Strangers in 7A. Andy Griffith and Ida Lupino. Metropolitan Area Building Superintendent Artie Sawyer and his wife Iris are being held hostage in their own apartment. Next that we have is The War Between Men and Women. Jack Lemmon and Barbara Harris. A sarcastic, nearsighted cartoonist averse to commitment falls for an eye-catching brunette single mother of 3. The War Between Men and Women. The Master Touch. Kirk Douglas and Julian Gemma. A just-released from prison professional thief decides to do one last high-risk heist which could set him up for life or hand him behind bars again. The Master Touch. The Nightcomers. Marlon Brando and Stephanie Beacham. Period drama, horror, and thriller. The Nightcomers. The Other. Uta Hagen. A series of gruesome accidents plague a small American farming community in the summer of 1935, encircling 2 identical twin brothers and their family. The Other. To All My Friends on Shore. Bill Cosby and Gloria Foster. An airport redcap works hard to get his family out of the ghetto, only to discover that his son has sickle cell anemia. To All My Friends on Shore. Trouble Man. A neighborhood problem solver is framed for murder by a couple of local crime bosses trying to get him out of the way. Robert Hooks and Paul Winfield. Up the Sandbox. A bored housewife takes refuge in a fantasy world. Farce, comedy, and drama. Barbra Streisand and David Selby. Visions. A professor who has visions of the future informs the police that someone is about to plant a bomb. He then discovers that the police consider him the prime suspect. Mont Markham and Barbara Anderson. Wacky Taxi with John Astin. A man unsatisfied in his job decides to start a taxi service. Comedy and family. Wacky Taxi. What's Up, Doc? Barbra Streisand, Ryan O'Neal, and Madeline Kahn. The accidental mix-up of 4 identical plaid overnight bags leads to a series of increasingly wild and wacky situations. One of the greatest comedy movies of all time, one of the best of 1972. When the Legends Die. Richard Widmark, Frederick Forrest, a young rebellious Ute Indian joins the rodeo circuit and falls in love with a drunken mentor. When the Legends Die. Contemporary western and drama. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo. A demented widow lures unsuspecting children into her mansion in a bizarre Hansel and Gretel twist. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo. Shelley Winters and Mark Lester. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. A poor but hopeful boy seeks one of the 5 coveted golden tickets that will send him on a tour of Willy Wonka's mysterious chocolate factory. Gene Wilder, Jack Albertson, and Peter Ostrom. The Revengers. When a rancher's family is massacred by a gang of outlaws, he assembles a mean team of convicts as his posse to pursue the killers. Drama and Western. William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, and Woody Strode. The Revengers. Those were the films that were released in 1972. Those were the best films of 1972. Now you can see there's some comedy, drama, horror, crime, romance, pretty much every genre, Western, biography, any particular genre in 1972 was covered, and it was a great year for movies. My all-time favorite comedy movie of all time is always going to be What's Up, Doc? With Barbra Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, and that was also released in 1972. It was also one of the best films of 1972. So let me know if there's any movies that I may have left out in the year 1972. What were your some of your favorite movies, if any, from this collection that you just saw? Any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. I'm Tony. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.